So I'm here just to give an update on the Resources and Environment Committee. And I was thinking when other people were introducing their committees as new, how long the Environment Committee has been in existence. And I know it's been in existence since at least 2000, because that's, I think, when I joined it. And I don't know if a few people here have had some interaction with our committee. It's certainly a very active and at times animated committee. I took over chairing from Peter Ware, and there's certainly some big personalities involved, as is the nature of the space that we deal with. In terms of numbers of representatives, I was just doing a quick tally up as I was sitting down there. I'm thinking somewhere in the order of 12 or 14 members, but the main representation is from forest owners. We also have 2 Farm Forestry Association representatives, and we have representation from Scion and MPI. In terms of what we work on, I guess we're a forum to work on national and regional level issues for our industry in the environment space, and we certainly have a lot of interaction with through our meetings with ministry officials and representatives, and in particular NGOs. So I guess we're quite outward facing in what we do. And again, as is the nature of the beast, a lot of what we do is reacting to what's going on around us, and some of those things we can predict, and there's certainly perennial issues that go on from year to year, and then some years new things jump into our space that none of us saw coming. So there's a reactive element to it, and then I guess there's also, we do tend to do a bit of the blue sky thinking, looking at things that we think should be priorities for our industry. And I guess a couple of things that have come out of our committee, rightly or wrongly, are the National Environmental Standard for Plantation Forestry. So that was something that we saw to be an opportunity to get greater consistency across the regions and districts in terms of the rules that we operate under. And I remember thinking at the time we might beware what we wished for, and some days I think that might be the case, but certainly it's brought some benefits for us. And another one is developing alternative certification for forestry in New Zealand. So we've had FSC in place for a long period of time, but we were instrumental in getting the machinery in place to have a second alternative of PEFC certification. In terms of this year, I guess I was thinking about what are some of the key themes in terms of the things we've been working on. Certainly implementation of the National Environmental Standard was one that we had always planned for this year. There was going to be some work in that space. And then sort of things that came out of the left field at us, erosion, debris movement, social licence to operate, everything that came out of Maraho and Tolaga Bay has caused quite a bit of focus, and on a completely different tack, biodiversity issues. So I'll talk about that a bit more, but I guess the logs on the beaches has been out there in the media, and the biodiversity one's sort of coming up from behind via other avenues, and I will talk about that a bit further. So there's a lot of work done by our committee. A lot of it's done in terms of in-kind support. Members of the committee, any new issue comes up, we nominate some people to work on it, so there's an awful lot of in-kind support goes on, but we do also have support on some of the projects from the Levy Trust. And so Vanessa has helpfully put together a list of the key things that we've been working on this year that's had Levy Trust support. So just working through the list up there on the overhead. So updating and promoting the rare species website. I'm not sure if people are familiar with that, but on the FOA website is a separate linked website that provides information about all the threatened and at-risk species that occupy both our productive forest but also our reserves. And that's useful for those of us that are certified, that we're required to have these systems in place, so it's a fantastic resource to get that information, but also for those of you undertaking harvesting, if you may have any of those species in your forest, as far as getting further information and guidance on how to manage them. And so as far as that website's been up and running for a number of years, but the threatened species listings get reviewed from time to time, and that in itself has meant that we have to update and refresh, and the guidance material as well, I guess. So we have to update and refresh the website, and so that was undertaken this year with work from Wildlands Consultants. And then the next one, on a different tack, we commissioned work on alternative species for steep slopes. So that's a report that Dean Satchell prepared, and I presume hopefully some people have seen that, but it's a really good resource, in particular for the smaller forest owners that are interested in looking at alternative species, so it gives some really good information, particularly for steep and erosion-prone country, so it gives a really good background on all those erosion issues, but then a good synopsis of all the different species options. So that one, as far as I'm aware, I'm sure it's on the Farm Forestry Association website is where you access that report. And then the third one is related to the National Environmental Standards. So shortly after completion of the NES, MPI started work on some industry best practice guides on some key topics. So those are a practical resource both for forest owners in terms of undertaking work under the National Environmental Standard, but also for regional and district councils administering the standard, I guess. So the MPI started that work, and they've provided a fair chunk of the funding to complete those best practice guides. And then latterly, Forest Owners Association has picked them up, and now we are the owners of the guidance material. And so those within the last few weeks were made publicly available. They're now on the FOA website. So if you haven't seen them, I really encourage you to have a look. So they cover a range, I think there's 28 guides from memory covering a whole range of engineering, good practice aspects, erosion, sediment control, debris movement / management, that type side of things. And then the next one, they're kind of two separate topics. So we had representation on the Land and Water Forum. So I'm assuming everybody's heard of the Land and Water Forum, but a collection of people from different sectors, interest groups, I guess, getting together to provide guidance to government on key topics, and in particular in the relation to water quality. So Peter Ware was involved in that for quite a number of years, and he went to some incredible number of meetings, like 60 something, I think. And then latterly, Venice, in the last year or so, Venice Comfort from FOA has participated, and so they've prepared their final report and are currently in abeyance, so that's kind of finished for the time being. And the second one, unrelated, 3 minutes, National Policy Statement on Indigenous Biodiversity. So Ministry for the Environment put together a collaborative working group to try and land a recommendation for a national policy statement to go forward on dealing with Indigenous biodiversity. Now, this has been something that's been a long time coming. There's been various drafts of it in the past, and Venice Comfort and Brett Gilmore were our representatives on the process, and then latterly a few others of us got involved. And unfortunately, we weren't able to land an agreement on that one, and a key issue for us was, so this MPS would provide guidance to regional and district councils on how to manage biodiversity, and in particular, many of you will have dealt with significant natural areas on your land, and so consistent guidance on SNAs and how they should be managed. And the issue for us was the key issue for us is the potential for any vegetation that is habitat for either threatened or at-risk species to become an SNA, and then encounter a whole bunch of rules that go along with being SNA. So, just in terms of our productive forest, we're talking about falcon, kiwi, weka, bats, a whole bunch of things that occupy our production forest, potentially making that become SNA and having additional rules around that. So this is a big issue for us, and we're only at the early stages of it, so that the outcome of that collaborative group has now gone, any day now goes to the Minister. Presumably it will then go into MFE and come out at some point as a draft policy statement. It's something that we're going to have to continue to engage with to try to get some really practical outcomes, I guess, for our industry. So that's that one. And then the other ones are shorter, thankfully, since I've now down to about 1 minute. We've published a number of environmental fact sheets, so that's something that Scion's helped us with. So they're sort of short 2 to 3 page summaries on key topics, and I think we're now up to maybe 8 of those. And so again, they're on the FOA website. And again, hopefully useful resources to people interacting with councils or stakeholders. That second to last one, creating a portal of key stats for public and stakeholder access. So that is, what's it? New Zealand Planted Forests portal, I think, is the website. If you looked up newzealandplantedforest.org, and that's a website that's prepared and administered by Scion, and that's more outward facing. So that's for external stakeholders to pick up key information about our industry, and in particular, it reports on all of the Montreal process indicators. And the final one is pretty simple. That was funding and assistance for updating the New Zealand FSC national standard. So as many of you all know, we've had a standard for a number of years, and it needed to be refreshed to meet the new FSC international generic indicators. So levy funding has been used to help. There's been a lot of in-kind work going on that, but to help fund the process with the input from ENGOs. And I think the 2 dings means I'm fully up, does it?
I think so.
It is? Anyway, luckily I'm done. So those pictures are just examples of some of the things I've been talking about. Thank you.